Good evening, everyone, and we are going to continue our class on literary criticism and literary theory. We were talking about neoclassical criticism, and we have discussed previously classical criticism, Renaissance criticism, and we are now focusing on neoclassicism and neoclassical criticism. And in that topic, we have already discussed major critics like Dryden, Pope, and also Jonathan Swift. Today we are going to discuss about Burke and especially about Samuel Johnson. So I hope everyone is here right now. Just say hi in the chat box if you're there. Anyway, I will just start our class, and remember that we have to finish this today because it was we have left this uh, because we didn't have enough time to complete that. So again, we will have, of course, mock test on every section, literary criticism and all. So therefore you have to pay attention to this class a little bit more, and I wanted you to. Okay, Anjali is here, good. And who else are there? Priya must be there with Devi, Vidya, and also Sangeeta. I don't know who else are there. I will only know when you say hi in the chat box. Like Anjali said that she is there, and I want everyone to say hi in the chat box. I think in previous class we really had fun and we laughed a lot because there was fight between couple of students here, right? Anjali and Priya fought in the library, and we really had fun. And today we'll continue with Edmund Burke, and today we have to finish this, and tomorrow we are going to start our next section. So all right, so first of all, Edmund Burke is actually Irish, and he's Irish British statesman. And why he's famous, and one more thing we have to remember about him, that he was the member of the Whig Party in the House of Commons of Great Britain between 1766 to 1794. Great. So Burke, why we know him? Because of the vindication of natural society, and of course a reflection on the revolution in France, and a philosophical inquiry into the origin of our ideas and the sublime and the beautiful mind. That is quite important work. What you get question related to that is chronological order, and also couple of term. And as I said, not only Longinus has talked about sublime, but Burke also had something to say about it, and that we are going to discuss in a philosophical inquiry into the origin of our ideas of the sublime and the beautiful mind. All right, so it is in a treatise, aesthetics. So sublime and this sublime, and also about aesthetics, we know about Oscar Wilde and Walter Pater and Swinburne. They are all the aesthetic critics, and this work especially belong to the aesthetic criticism, and it separates the beautiful and sublime into their respective rational category. So remember the name of this work, which is very important. And Burke actually defines what is beautiful. Beautiful as well formed and aesthetically pleasing. According to him, sublime is which has the power to compel and destroy us. So it has power not only about to inspire, but also to destroy us. So in the new classical period, the beautiful was favored over the sublime. In the Romantic period, the sublime was favored over the beautiful. So just remember the name of the work and the date and who wrote it and what it is about. It is a treatise on aesthetics. Got it? And Burke's view of beauty is unique in that the traditional definition of beauty cannot explain it. And we have three, which is proportion, fitness, and perfection. So here is also there is also a casual structure to the sublime that is different from the beauty. He says that sublime is formal causes because therefore the passion of fear. The material cause is aspect of certain objects such as vastness, infinity, magnificence. And in the final cause, another cause is the tension. So remember these facts that he talked about in the sublime, that the passion of fear, and as vastness, infinity, magnificent, and also there is tension and nerves is its efficient cause. And the final cause is the God's creation and battle with Satan, as expressed in the John Milton's great epic Paradise Lost. So Immanuel Kant criticized Burke for failing to understand the cause of the mental effect associated with experiences of beauty and sublime. Again, David Hume, he is a Scottish Enlightenment philosopher and essayist, and he is remembered for a treatise of human nature. So these works come under what? Neoclassical criticism. Remember these work, you might get order of the work and also maybe match the following. And a treatise of human nature, it is divided into 3 books, and it is the origin of ideas. In human nature, what we get? The origin of ideas, the ideas of space and time, a discussion of knowledge, probability, as well as the nature of causality. The skeptical implication of those theories are also. So there are book 1 is talking about what? Of the understanding of human nature, of the human understanding. Book 2 about human nature, and which is of the passion. And book 3 talks about the feelings, moral goodness or approval. So there are 3 part of the book. One is understanding, book 2nd is talking about the passion, and book 3rd is talking about the feelings. And again, another work is important, which is an inquiry concerning human understanding. And again, this is a revision of the earlier work, which is the treatise of human nature. And again, he was disappointed by the reception. So because he wrote that, many have criticized about it, so he came up with again another work, the inquiry concerning human understanding. So fell dead, born from the press, and so attempted to communicate his moral developed ideas in the public by writing shorter and controversial work. So in the end, he was able to produce the inquiry. So just remember the name. Again, I'm talking about that you might get in chronological order or match the following. Got it? And again, a little bit about it. An increment approach is taken in the inquiry. A couple of 4 points that you have to remember. Not 4, there are 12 points. We'll just summarize this. Of the different species of philosophy, of the origin of ideas, of the association of, so everything they are talking about the human understanding and the ideas and the concept. So the skeptical doubts regarding the operation of the understanding in 2 parts. So another skeptical solution of these doubts of probability, of the ideas of necessary connection, liberty and necessity, and about, of course, of the reason animal, miracle, and providence and the future state, and eventually they're talking about of the academic and skeptical philosophy. Again, another is a standard of taste. So where he talked in the human understanding. So that we have to know. And here comes a very important point, which is Samuel Johnson. And again, I said one question is certain here. And Samuel Johnson will just try to make this lecture little bit in some time in codes, or maybe will employ uh, like we discussed in previous class. No, we'll just characterize any of you in the work. So just let's see how we can cope up with it. But anyway, the poet, playwright, essayist, critic, biographer, editor. So he's like whatever the profession is there in literary, in literature, he has done all of these things. So Samuel Johnson was not only the poet, but he also wrote the play, and of course we know him as an essayist, and his whole identity is false in this critic and biographer. And also he was the editor and lexicographer, that he was a dictionary maker. So he made one literary dictionary and it was the first dictionary, so contribution to the English language. So he was also a devotee of Anglican, and he was Tory. And Walter Jackson Bate selected James Boswell Life of Samuel Johnson as the most famous single. So Jackson said that James Boswell's Life of Samuel Johnson is the most famous single work of biographical art in the whole of literature. So we should, if you have time, we can. But anyway, he wrote the Gentleman's Magazine. That question have asked already in net. And Johnson traveled to Scotland with James Boswell, where he learned much of about Johnson and what he wrote in the lives of Samuel Johnson. So as in a journey to the western island of Scotland. So anyway, notable work that we have to remember, Life of Mr. Savage. It's quite important work, and it is the earlier work of Samuel Johnson. Again, as he was a poet, he wrote famous poem London, The Vanity of Human Wishes, and he wrote a play called Irony. And again, the 9 year of effort, he wrote a dictionary called a Dictionary of the English Language, which was important date is 1755. He wrote essays like the plays of William Shakespeare, also the history of Horace and the Prince of Abyssinia. And toward the end of his life, he published the influential Lives of the Most Eminent English Poet, where you get question. It's like 70% of are the chances that you will get question from that, 30% that you might get from William Shakespeare, and the rest, of course, they might ask about the Iron, that the play that he wrote, and of course the poem London, which is quite famous these days, and it's like trending. They are asking about London. And London, not only he wrote, but there is William Blake who wrote about London, the London poem, and there is of course Samuel Johnson, and there is one more person who wrote the poem on London. One is William Blake, one is Milton, and of course here is one by Samuel Johnson. So these all three London they have asked in the question paper. So if you have time, you just go and search about London. Here we are not going to talk about the poem. We are here talking about Samuel Johnson's dictionary and the plays of William Shakespeare, and of course we are talking about the lives of the most eminent English poet of the 17th and 18th century. Again, we always remember first and last thing about. So first, the preface to Shakespeare, where you might encounter a question, and as I said, there is 30% chances that you'll get from this, and again 70% you might get from the lives of the poet. So anyway, Samuel Johnson, as we know, he wrote a preface on Shakespeare, and what he include is everything here, and that we have to remember. Okay, everything about it, about Samuel Johnson, you have to know in order to, of course, get one or two questions right in the exam. So here we go. So the following are the four components of Johnson. Remember that preface to Shakespeare has four components, and the component is beginning with Shakespeare's greatness. That is very important. That point has come already in the exam. Remember the greatness. So in the work he talks about Shakespeare's greatness. That is the first component of the work. The second is the faults and weakness. So he's not only talking about his greatness, but he's talking about his flaws, his weakness, and his faults. So in the second part he's talking about that component. And the third is the relationship between Shakespeare plays and contemporary poetry and drama. So he has not only talked about greatness and weakness of Shakespeare, but he also talked about his contemporaries, theater or drama, poetry. Got it? And the last part is Shakespearean criticism and editing down to the mid 1700 and what his work intends to do. So at the end of the last component of this work is that Samuel Johnson has added the Shakespearean criticism. So got it? So that 4-point, write in the chat box quickly. In 4 points: greatness, weakness, contemporary, and of course criticism. Write all these 4 points quickly in the chat box, whoever are there. And I'll also write what is first. First is the greatness, and second is what? His weakness, and the third is what? Is contemporary, and the fourth is his criticism. Okay, write this in chat box quickly. Greatness, weakness, contemporary, criticism. This is the component of the preface to Shakespeare. Got it? Say yes if it is clear. Say preface clear in the chat box quickly. Anyone there? Okay, right. Greatness, weakness, contemporary, and criticism first, and then say if the concept is clear, we can just write clear, preface clear in the chat box. Anyway, I'll just continue. Meanwhile, you type the things that I have asked you to do and write in the chat box. So remember, it has 72 pages. The first thing is antiquity, like every other quality that attracts the notice of mankind, has undoubtedly votaries and reverence it, not from reason but from prejudice. Great, Priya wrote greatness, weakness, contemporary, criticism. So that is the 4 component of the preface. And again, one more quote: what mankind have long possessed, they have often examined and compared, and if they persist to value the possession, it is because frequent comparison have confirmed opinion in its favor. Great, Priya says it's clear. Now we have to remember the praise of it, what he prayed about Shakespeare greatness, what Samuel Johnson prays about it. So in the comment, write Shakespeare poet of nature. You don't have to write like that. Shakespeare dash poet of nature. And again, his plays are neither tragedies nor comedies. So that is his. And according to him, poetry should instruct and delight. So before, what we talked about, one was inspire. Who wrote the poetry? Teach and inspire. The poetry please and inspire. And again, there was one point that the poetry instruct and delight here, Samuel Johnson. So I hope you got the point. Shakespeare genius in comedy, that is again praise, and people naturally like justice. So Johnson was critical about Shakespeare's poetic justice. So he criticized about Shakespeare's poetic justice. So remember these all points that you will definitely get a question based on that. The Shakespeare's drama plots are loosely formed. So I'm just again taking a model, I mean any one of you, whoever is there right now, Adi Sharma, who is Priya, is there. So Priya is like praising greatness of Shakespeare, and Anjali here is talking about the weakness and criticism. Got it? So Priya says that the Shakespeare was a poet of nature. These debates are going between them, and Anjali says that no, his plays are neither tragedies nor comedies, and he says that Priya says that poetry should instruct and delight, and also she says that Shakespeare's genius is in the comedy. So this is all to debate, and uh, Anjali says that Shakespeare has no poetic justice. So they are just again talking to about Shakespeare greatness and weakness, and Anjali again says that the drama plots are loosely formed in Shakespeare's drama. So Shakespeare is actually here. Johnson says that Shakespeare is guilty of violating the chronology of time and space, because sometime one event is happening very far and one event happening is like no connection is between time and places. So example like Hector in Troilus and Cressida. So unnecessary repetition of language is also there in Shakespeare's work, and of course he's talking about the language and violation of all unity. So according to Johnson, that Shakespeare has violate all kinds of unities. And again, one more thing, Shakespeare as Homer. We remember, right, in the last in the dramatic poesy, Dryden said Shakespeare as Homer and Ben Jonson as Virgil. Here Samuel Johnson says the Shakespeare again as Homer. So harmony and black verse. So I hope preface is clear. Write in the chat box, preface clear. Now we'll move to the lives of the most eminent English poet. Got it? And that will be, it's quite not so big, we'll be able to finish. So lives of the most eminent English poet, that is our topic now. So lives of the most eminent English poets. Remember that it is actually about all the short biography that he has included about the poets who belong to the 17th and 18th century. And remember, he talked about 52 poets. 52, write in the chat box 52 quickly. And the names are arranged according to the death, not by the birth but by the death. So that is also important. And of course there is a chronological ordering of the lives according to date of the death and not the date of the birth. They range in length from few pages or sometime an entire book. Yeah, so that is all introduction. And remember, who are the important poet in the most eminent English poets book? That first is Ibrahim Cowley, where he talked about metaphysical poem, right? Metaphysical poet. And John Milton, John Dryden, Joseph Addison, Alexander Pope, as well as some less important ones such as William Collins and William Sandstone. So what are the major poet? Abraham Cowley, Milton, Dryden, Addison and Pope. Alright, so Johnson dislike of John Milton. Why? And Thomas Gray. So he didn't like these two poets, John Milton and Thomas Gray. And why? Because has been cited as evidence that he was prejudiced against their poetry. However, this argument has been overstated. So some people believe that he was Anyway, his opinions about a poet and his work differ from time to time, as in the case of Collins. And Johnson disagreed with the poet's poetic manner, and he says he puts his word out of the common order, seeming to think with some later candidate for fame that not to write prose is certainly to write poetry. And he was particular proud of life of Cowley. Very important chapter is life of Abraham Cowley that I told you, that where he discussed about metaphysical poets and whom Cowley may have been the last representative. And there he, remember the first term came from Dryden's, right? Dryden, dramatic poesy, where he talked about someone, a metaphysical poet, but mainly the term which are truly well explained in life of Cowley. So metaphysical poets occurred. The term was mainly expanded in where the lives of the poet. So remember that metaphysical poem in the life of Abraham Cowley. And the life of Pope, it seems to be the longest and the best. So write Pope best in the chat box and write Cowley metaphysical poets or just metaphysics or metaphysical. Write Cowley metaphysical. And Pope's life and career were fresh and public enough to provide ample biographical material. Johnson found Pope's poetry highly congenial. Got it? Now we'll just move to the Edward Young. Edward Young, you just have to know about the Knight's Thought, and he's only remember for the Night Thought. Night Thought is kind of philosophical writing in blank verse, reflecting his state of mind following several bereavements. And it was one of the most famous poems of the century, influenced Goethe and Edmund Burke among many others. And he wrote also Conjuncture on original composition, which was published in 1759, and he addressed to Samuel Richardson. Great. Cowley metaphysics. Great. So again, the next one is Sir Joshua Reynolds, and we know him for the Royal Academy of Art. That only we have to understand. The Royal Academy of Art, and one term, grand style. Right? Reynolds, Joshua Reynolds, and Royal Academy of Art. Okay, got it? RAA, you can just write, or just Royal Academy. Reynolds, Royal Academy. So that is about. And also one work that he wrote is Discourse on Art. Again, it is the treatise on aestheticism, and where he talks about, he actually gave the lecture in the academy between 1769 to 1790. On the lecture, he talked about, expressed views like that invention is, strictly speaking, is a little more than a new combination of those images, and which have been previously gathered and deposited in the memory. So in his contemporary essay, William Jackson said of Reynolds that there is much ingenuity and originality in all his academic discourses, replete with classical knowledge of his art, acute embarks on the works of others, and general taste and discernment. We have to just remember Reynolds, Royal Academy, grand style, discourse on art, and of course J.M.W. Turner, James Northcote were sincere disciple. We have Immanuel Kant now, and Immanuel Kant is lifespan, we know, 1724 to 1808. Again, he's important German philosopher in the Enlightenment. So Kant wrote on epistemology, metaphysics, ethics, and aesthetics, and he argued that the space and time are mere forms of intuitions, and according to him, it is structure all experiences. Therefore, things in themselves exist and contributor. We'll just we'll talk about the important thing. Remember, Immanuel Kant is a key figure in the Enlightenment, and he also talked about space and time, mere forms and intuition. And the important work is Critique of Pure Reason, that he wrote and regarded one of his well-known work, and Critique of Practical Reason. So whatever he Critique of Pure Reason and the Practical Reason, there is another work, the Critique of Judgment. All the critique he has written. So write critique dash reason, practical and judgment. Okay, Sangeeta says 52. Anyway, we are talking about the Critique of Judgment, which is very important work of Immanuel Kant, and it's sometimes referred the third critique. The Critique of Judgment follows the Critique of Pure Reason, Critique of Practical Reason. Remember this, the Critique of Judgment is divided into two works. One is aesthetic and one is theological. The Critique of Aesthetic Judgment, the Critique of Theological Judgment. Only you have to remember the name, and of course Kant presents in his Critique of Aesthetic Judgment the four moments of judgment of taste. So according to him, Kant gives these in the sequence: quality, quantity, relation and modality. Write in the chat box quickly: quality, quantity, relation, modality. If you're there, write in the chat box quickly: quality, quantity, and of course and relation, and at the end modality. And he also talks about the book's first part discusses the aesthetic. All we are talking about the aesthetic critics, right? And he talked about the agreeable, the beautiful, the sublime and the good. And the book 2, which is the third critique, analytic of sublime. So that's all we had in literary criticism section, neoclassical criticism. And tomorrow we are going to continue, and we will have romantic criticism, which is quite important. Everyone should attend the class tomorrow at, of course, it was 4 p.m. right? And also you will receive mock test tomorrow, so check your Google Classroom regularly. Tomorrow I'll be posting mock test, and everyone should attempt. We'll have one class tomorrow. Sunday will be full day. You are going to do mock test, nothing else. Got it? And tomorrow we are going to discuss section 4, romantic criticism, where we'll talk about Wilhelm Schlegel, Schiller, Seliger, Schelling, and Blake, Wordsworth, Coleridge, Keats, Peacock, Shelley. These all romantic. So tomorrow I'll see you there. Got it? For now, bye. And we discussed paper today. We discussed PYQ, paper 1, and also literary criticism and theory. So bye for now. I'll update everything in the group. Okay, bye bye.